light wet. And at that time, I did not have a UPS or an inverter system like I do now. And my son, and then of course, naturally, the exciting part, I knew quite well by the time you now put on the generator and everything, you miss some parts. So naturally, we're cursing. And my son just said a simple thing, 9-year-old boy, innocently, he said, Daddy, what have you done about it?
Wow.
I think that was my call to service. And I think basically there's nothing worse than it's so easy to criticize and failure to participate. It's the worst part of it. It's not participating but making an effort that you've done something. At least you can come out at the other end, no matter how bad it was, that well, I played a part. What have you done? And that was the call to service. That do what you need to do. At least no matter how it is, history will find a way to judge you either way, whether good or for bad. But the bottom line was that you have to participate. Many of us are very comfortable in our couch potato to criticize, but many of us have refused to actually take that leap of faith to do the right thing. People complain government is bad, who's going to clean it up if you don't go there? It's easy to criticize from the outside, but it's time for you to go in there and make sure the mess is cleaned up. Naturally, when you go in there, a bit of the dirt will touch your body, so you need to just go and do the right thing. So I spent 2.5 years preparing and studied and reviewed and saw what it was. So 2.5 years actually. So 2.5 years prior to me being announced DG, I had actually prepared. So I was actually prepared for the job. Like I said, I'd rather have more intelligent people around me than have psychopaths. And the problem we have in Africa is that we have no psychopaths.
Hello and welcome to Nigerian Podcast. With me today is a special guest. He's a Nigerian that has rubbed minds with the very, very top at both corporate, political, and even legal minds. He's a former Director General of NIMASA. I'm going to tell you what NIMASA stands for. It stands for Nigerian Administration, Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. He's a lawyer by profession, graduated with both first and second degrees at the University of Wales. Presently, he is the president of African Ship Owners Association. My guest is Temisan Raymond Omatseye. Welcome to Nigerian Realm.
Thank you very much.
Wow, you are one man that is high profile. I'm excited to have you on my podcast. This is Nigerian Real. I'm always real with my guests.
Yes.
It's not edited. It's put out as recorded. Your agency has earned billions of naira. On when I was doing the research, it says it earned 1.34 billion in 5 years. That was the agency you were in charge of. Nigeria is a very peculiar nation. So my question as a lawyer, why did you agree to become the Director General of NIMASA? And when were you appointed? Which year was this?
Well, basically, I was appointed, to be precise, on the 9th of July 2009.
Okay.
In actual fact, it was a very interesting thing because I received a phone call from the then Principal Secretary to the President, President Yaradua, on the 7th of July. So it was 7th of 7.
That's my birthday.
Ah, wow.
7 is my birthday.
Yes. And then at 7 p.m. So
wow.
It was a 777 thing. Because I remember very clearly that day, I was actually sitting at the Hilton, just standing by the window, looking at the window, saying, Father Lord God, what next? And then the call came through from Mr. David Edefwe. And he said to me, congratulations, Mr. President, I just approved you as the next DG of the NIMASA. This was at 7 p.m. exactly on the 7th. So
could you kindly move closer to the mic?
Yes. So it happened on the 7th. So I always have my 777 period, but of course, naturally, I didn't resume until 2 days later because I had to go into the paperwork at the ministry, and then now took over my position on the 10th of July, which was a Friday. My call to service was quite simple. I've always said this all the time again. While we were sitting down watching, I think my son then was 9, he's 19 now, he's 20 next month. And so this was about 10 years ago. And we're watching a TV program, I think I'm watching African Magic on DSTV.
Okay.
And then the light went. And at that time I did not have a UPS or an inverter system like I do now. And my son, And then, of course, naturally, in the exciting part, and you knew quite well by the time you now put on the generator and everything, you miss some parts. So naturally, we're cursing. And my son just said a simple thing, 9-year-old boy, innocent. He said, Daddy, what have you done about it?
Wow.
I think that was my call to service. And I think basically there's nothing worse than it's so easy to criticize and failure to participate. It's the worst part of it. It's not participating but making an effort that you've done something. At least you can come out at the other end, no matter how bad it was. That I played a part. What have you done? And that was the call to service. That do what you need to do. At least no matter how it is, history will find a way to judge you either way, whether good or for bad. But the bottom line was that you have to participate. Many of us are very comfortable in our couch potato to criticize, but many of us have refused to actually take that leap of faith to do the right thing. People complain government is bad, government is bad. Who's going to clean it up if you don't go there? It's easy to criticize on the outside, but it's time for you to go in there and make sure the messes are cleaned up. Naturally, when you go in there, the bit of the dirt will touch your body, so you need to just go and do the right thing.
Well put. I always call critics that they are like pigeons. What they do is they fly around and poo on the statues
Yes.
of achievers. How being a DG, did you know the setting? Did you know how it was going to work?
Interestingly enough, it was actually another thing that called me up to that as well. Prior to that happening, that my son's son happened several years before I was invited to the job. But prior to that, the DG before me was a guy called Dr. Dosu, and he had invited me for a meeting. And at that meeting, he had invited me to come and have a chat with him to talk on the way forward. Because prior to him coming on board, I had known Mrs. Osoro, who was the DG before he came on board.
Okay.
And I'd set up some strategic plans for her on how to drive the agency forward. And so he had invited me to come, and then I got there, and then security men, you know how they are, a bit of zealous, refused to even allow me into the lobby of that agency. And they said, the DG's coming, that we should go and wait in the car park or whatever. And I went with a friend of mine, Mr. Dr. Tayo Aduloju. Okay. And we went together, and then Tayo just said to me, he said, sir, what all this rubbish? You can be the DG of this place. So I spent 2.5 years preparing. So I went back, I'm a maritime lawyer by profession.
Okay.
So I went back and studied and reviewed and saw what it was. So in 2.5 years actually. So 2.5 years prior to me being announced DG, I had actually prepared. So I was actually prepared for the job.
Wow. I'm sure you know that being appointed by the government, people can misconstrue it. Who were you answerable to as a DG?
Well, I was answerable to the Minister of Transport.
Okay.
Yes.
So it was purely the Minister of Transport. Can he overrule your decisions?
Well, you can't even take any decisions without reporting to your minister. So, by virtue of the Merchant Shipping Act, the de facto DG is actually the Minister of Transport.
Okay.
So whatever actions we're taking is on his behalf. So what naturally happens is that whatever decisions we take is basically part of a plan which he approves and whatever. So the day-to-day running, yes, we handle that. But on the major policy issues, I run it by him, and then once he gives a sign off on it, then I just go ahead and implement exactly what he says. So then I had a very good minister, Alhaji Sabio, who was a wonderful person who understood exactly strategically what I was trying to achieve, and he gave us the free hand to do what needed to be done, and we're able to move forward, move the agency forward.
Brilliant. Did you prepare for the politics of your position? For instance, by virtue of your position, which is a top position, you will come across politicians. How did you prepare mentally, psychologically? Did you have a plan that, listen, if this minister or this politician tries to do things or tries to give you instructions against your values, how did you plan to do that?
The politics was the part I had difficulty dealing with. I had a difficulty dealing with the politics side. The reason quite clearly is because when one is brought up on a principle of white is white and black is black, then when you're faced with a situation where people tell you that black is grey, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. And that was the issues I had.
So how did you deal with it?
I couldn't deal with it. That's why I guess I faced the challenges I did a few years later, because I just could not deal with it. Because I'm a sharpshooter. I shoot from the hips. I tell you as it is, and that's how it goes. Because nobody's going to affect my sleep. I'll tell you exactly how things are and things are supposed to be, and it's either you take it or you don't take it. And I guess maybe it's a bit of an uncompromising side of me, but at least the bottom line is that it gave me peace of mind. So I knew what was right, what needed to be done. And a lot of people did not believe it, did not appreciate it, and then who am I to say? But I just did not get the politics. I tried to manage it. I tried to get people to manage it, but there's some things which are just unmanageable. And it's either you stick by your principles, or at the end of the day you just fall. I mean, if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. That's my principle.
Now I'm going to be very, very specific with you now. The former Attorney General of the Federation, Mohammed Adoke, requested you discontinue a case when you were at the NIMASA DG. You filed something against the NLNG, that's the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas.
Yes.
Now, when you filed that and the Attorney General requested you discontinue that case, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
Well, you see, it's a very interesting scenario, because the issue of NLNG and NIMASA preceded me. It was not a matter that came on my desk just like that. It wasn't something I started. It was basically something that preceded me, in the sense that the DGs prior to me coming in had also been engaging the Nigerian LNG on the payment of dues to the agency. And the issue we're faced with was an issue of conflict of law.
Okay.
Basically, the LNG Act was the LNG Investment Act, LNG Guarantee Act, and Investment Guarantee Act stated a position that no laws can be passed which would basically impose a levy on LNG or any of its sister companies.
Okay.
That was what the law said. Now, and that law was passed in 1990 something, or whatever the case may be. Now, we have another act, which is in the NIMASA Act, which says we are to collect 3% of the gross freight rates of every international cargo coming in and out of Nigeria. Now, which means any cargoes coming in, be it crude oil, gas, or whatever else, 3% of the gross freight rate is collected by NIMASA. Now, LNG were relying on their own act, which although came under the pioneer status, which gave them 5 to 6 years tax-free holiday,
okay,
which is extended to 10 years, or whatever the case may be. But the argument which the NIMASA had was that, hey, your pioneer status is over, but in any case you have to pay this. But it even gets even more complicated than that, because the person who pays for this 3% levy is actually the ship owner. It's not the LNG itself. So it's not Nigerian LNG. It is the ship owner that pays this. LNG has a company called Bonny Gas Transport Company, BGT, Bonny Gas Transport, which is registered in the Bahamas, which is 100% by Nigerian LNG.
Wow.
Now, they've been coming, and they also charter vessels. So our argument was that, well, these do not belong to you. You cannot be hiding in a tax haven in Bahamas, refuse to pay tax to Bahamas, and refuse to pay tax to Nigeria. And in any way, the NIMASA Act does not specifically target you as LNG. Mm-hmm. It's actually everybody pays, irrespective of whatever. Even the guy that brings in the one slippers, the cost of that slippers, the freight is also included in the paying to the NIMASA. So what I actually went to the court to do wasn't that I actually sued LNG. We actually sued them. We actually took them to court to get a judicial review, which is basically for the court to determine between the two acts which one is more superior or what the case may be. So that was one, because they were owing us about $350 to $400 million at that time. Wow. And then they were supposed to pay us additional almost $5 or $6 million on a monthly basis. So this was what we went to do. Mm. But prior to my coming in, there had already been an arrangement between LNG and NIMASA, whereby they were going to identify some projects. Okay. And then later on, it didn't fall through, and it was just crazy. And they were having issues with their international investors like Shell and the rest. So basically I needed to go to court because the MD of NLNG actually advised me that the best way to sort this, because Nigeria is a minority stakeholder, is to go to court and sort this out. And that was what we were seeking a judicial review on. So, of course, before doing that, I took it to my board. I'm not answerable to the Attorney General. I'm only answerable to the Minister of Transport. I'm answerable to my board and to the Minister of Transport.
Okay.
So I took it to my board, and of course I got a sign off from my minister, on what was to be done. So it wasn't a unilateral decision. So for the Attorney General to actually, at that time, to call me up and say that I should withdraw the case, I found it a bit awkward. And I naturally told him on the phone that I'm sorry, I cannot unilaterally do that. And secondly, I cannot do that by you phoning me and telling me, put it in writing and send it to me. Or tell my minister to direct me necessarily. But apart from that, I'm sorry, sir, I cannot work by word of mouth. Of course, he didn't take too kindly to that.
Yeah, but you knew he wasn't going to take too kindly to that.
Well, maybe in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. Because that day I was actually on my way to the airport. I was on a flight. I was going to a flight from Lagos to Singapore.
Okay.
So I thought I was, and actually I pleaded with him, but maybe what I should have done, I said, maybe what I should have done at that time, in hindsight, I should have just said, sir, please, I'm just leaving the country now. When I come back, I'll come and see you and discuss it with you further. Okay. In hindsight, maybe I should have done that. But then at that time, I thought, hey man, you're talking to me, put it in writing.
They were accused of you being arrogant.
Yes, he said I was being arrogant, and then, but I didn't think I was being arrogant. I was only trying to save my skin. Because I knew if I'd gone and withdrawn the case, which was approved by a minister and the board, of course, people will come back later and maybe take me to court and say that I made the government invest $315 million unilaterally. So naturally, I was trying, at that time, the first thing in my mind was to cover myself.
So when the Attorney General, when it then turned into a case, you were then charged by EFCC.
What then happened it took a different turn at that time, because then this happened on the 15th of November 2010, and then at the end of the conversation said, this is going to be a Waterloo, I took nothing to that, so whatever you want. I mean, my mind, I didn't say it out. I said, okay, whatever wants to do, let him do whatever they want to do, and that's what I said in my own mind. And then 10 days later, I had the EFCC guys come and pick me up and make some accusations of things that I just didn't understand what's going on. So I guess he now put in motion the issue of missing my Waterloo.
Yeah, but that must have been traumatic, not only for you, but for your family as well.
Oh,
how do you deal with such situations?
It's very difficult because, when you know in your heart of heart, because first of all, of course, when it first happens, when they pick you up like that and they begin to throw things at you, begin to, first of all, you're taken aback, you're wondering what is going on, you're trying to balance the stuff and find out the truth of what is going on. At that time, you don't understand. I mean, at this time, I didn't realize it was because of this NLNG matter. But at that time, you're wondering, did I really do something wrong? Did I do something wrong? You begin to question yourself. So you begin to watch the game play out. That's what's happening. Okay, let's see how it will play out, And then, naturally, it was very traumatic because, you as a man have taught your children to do the right thing, to do whatever, and then now you're the one being accused of this. How do you look at your kids in the face? So in that area, it was a bit traumatic, and because of that, I decided, whatever the case may be, I'm going to see this through, no matter how long it's going to take.
And how long did it take?
It's still going on.
It's still ongoing?
5 years, yes.
I thought, forgive my naivety here. I actually thought the case was over.
No. We next week, Thursday, we are adopting our final address, and then the judge is going for a judge.
How can one be, and you are this calm that a case is,
Well, it's God. I've not done anything. So let God be God and let man be man, and then let the judge.
So 5 years is still ongoing?
Yes, and I've been on suspension for that period.
Wow.
Yes.
I actually did not know at all. I'll be very honest with you. Had I known, I would have brought it up.
Are you serious?
Yeah, had I known, I would have, because I actually thought that, I'm being real with you, that the case was over.
Yeah, but these are all things, they're all in the public domain.
I know.
Whatever I told you, it's already in the public domain. Yeah. So it's what happened in the court. So it's just basically, so we're adopting, we're adopting our final addresses by next week, Thursday, 25th. And then by next time I come back, the ruling judgment should have been given by then.
And you're confident to be in your favor?
Well, I believe God. I've done nothing wrong. I'm not worried. Of course, naturally, you don't know where to go, but the bottom line very clearly is that my spirit is clear. One thing at least I'm grateful for is that they never accused me of stealing any money. Okay. The charges are basically that my contract limit was 2.5 million naira.
And you went above that?
And I approved 4.8. The bottom line was that they relied on the statement I made. Now, I made the statement in December, when EFCC picked me up, in November, December 2010. I made a statement which said, yes, my approval limit is 2.5 for goods and 5 million for works. But I made that statement in 2010. But the contracts they're relying on were contracts awarded in December and January 2009, 2010. Now, of course, as of December 2010, I knew that because the guidelines had been given to me in July 2010. Mm. But when those contracts were awarded, my limit was 5 million naira. Mm. So yes, of course. So that's what I tried to explain to the court, that yes, definitely, yes, I am telling that at the later end. But these contracts are bringing them, these guidelines were not applicable at the time.
Okay, I'm with you.
So that is what it is. That is what it is. So it's very wondering, because you sit at an agency where that's what amazes me. I got into that agency and we were earning about $11 million a month. That's internally generated revenue. Pushed it up within 3-4 months. Pushed it up to $20 million a month. The day I left that agency, I left I think we had about 52 billion naira in the bank account at that time. Not to talk about what we earned in December, which is so altogether, let's say look about 56 or 57 billion naira in the bank, which I left. Fixed deposits. These were fixed deposits. Then you now wake up and accusing me of splitting contracts of total of 50 million naira. And this. It tells you that there was an element of some funny thing going on. So it was quite a bit of a challenge, but I guess that's the way. If you don't face this, you're never mad.
Yeah, that's true. How would you encourage someone to take up position? Someone that doesn't have the strength to go through what you're going through.
You have no choice. These are the things that you have to go through. It's scary. One of my reasons for going to government was because I was trying to encourage, because many of us, by the time we are 40, 45, we're really at that stage in our life where we should have been successful in whatever field we're doing, and now it's time for how do we give back to where we're coming from, and that really we can, by 40, 45, 50, we should step into government and try and assist in using our experience with the private sector to build. And that was really what I was driving towards, because I got into government at about 44, 45. Thinking that build up to about 150, then I'll step aside and go back to the private sector, and do whatever. But I still do not feel that it's something that anybody should run from. It's something which I'll still encourage anybody that is in that 45 to still go back into government. The reason why I look at this is because our country, Nigeria, is facing a challenge. Why I say so is, I always give the example, and civil servants hate me for it in Nigeria. I said, if you come to the UK or you go to the United States, the civil servants from the United States come from the Ivy League University, they must get a first class, they're given a good pay and everything else. You come here, you're either from Oxbridge or whatever the case may be, and they pick the best of the best. Correct. Because these are people who are involved. In Nigeria, it's different. Mm-hmm. You find that it's the dirge of the earth that actually end up in those that cannot even get a job in the private sectors. They're the one that those go and language in the civil service and try to look very poor when they have so much money. But that is a challenge. That is why. So that's why I said we need to go back, because we're not doing it for you alone. Because one thing I found out is that money can't get you very far. The only thing that gets you far is your legacy.
Say that again, please. Africans need to hear that. And it's refreshing coming from someone that served, the highest.
No, I'll tell you why. Because when I was DG, something you're faced with when you're in government in Nigeria, you're faced with so much money. And one of my essay came up to me, the same Dr. Adoke came up to me and said to me, "So we need to take a decision here." I said, "What's the decision?" what are we going for? I said, what do you mean what we're going for? We're doing our job yesterday. Are we going for the money or are we going for the legacy?
Wow.
And I said, we're going for the legacy. So therefore, at the moment that decision was taken, the issue of money was no longer more. All we were doing was just a job.
I love that. Either going for the money or going for the legacy.
Yeah.
Would you agree with me that many politicians, let me put it to you, do we need career politicians or people from the corporation to rule Nigeria and Africa, for instance?
But the problem is that how do you get in there in the first place? You have to. Are you going to wake up one day and say, "Well, all the money I've earned, all my savings, I'm going to go into politics"? And the politician is somebody who is a professional politician, and then he gets in there, he steals the money, so you can't compete with him. The only way you can do it is basically you have to, which is what happened when I ran for office. You just have to win the soul of the people. Once you win the soul of the people, then it's no longer about money. It's about, them believing in you and trusting you.
The president, is it the NNPC boss, who is petroleum minister, I believe, Ibe, said he's losing almost $1 million per year to serve the country. I found that inspiring. That, listen, I'm sacrificing my pay here. I could, stay in private sector.
Well, let's be truthful to ourselves.
Yeah.
Really. Yes, you're sacrificing that pay. It's like being the president of the United States. Bill Clinton was earning about $100,000 a year, $120,000 or $140,000 or $400,000 a year, whatever he was earning. But when he left office, his public speaking, once you leave, naturally, you can't. That toga, former GMD or former minister, cannot leave you, and that opens quite a few doors for you.
But do people understand that? Does our culture encourage that? Do people on the street actually understand that? Listen, you don't go into power to make money, leave a legacy, and then afterwards.
No, you have to also understand something. Sometimes it's not their fault. It's not the fault of the person on that seat. The pressure is too much. The expectations are too high. You get into that office. A cousin that you don't know came out of a woodwork, and then a friend. By the time you leave that office, you'll make more enemies from your family than friends, because they say, "He didn't give me money, he didn't do that." So there are expectations from Nigerians that once you get to that stage, your job is to go steal.
How do you begin to change that?
That is the problem. So you have to decide. You have to decide on that. Look, I'm going to do the right thing, and if I come out, I'll deal with my families later. But definitely, a lot of pressure comes from families.
Wow.
Yes. A lot of pressure comes from families, from villages, and from all the other stuff. That's what it comes from. That's where the real pressure comes from.
See, my challenge is there's so many intelligent Africans, intelligent Nigerians, if I'm to be specific, but they're scared of going into.
But they can't be. You see, fear is fear itself. So we can't allow fear to take absolute control of us. We must get to a situation whereby we have to step out in faith and decide and do the right thing. It's so easy for somebody to say, "Oh well, I'm afraid," and whatever. Well, everybody's afraid. But you see, once you know the right thing to do, you believe in God and you stick to your principles, sincerely and truly, you get through with it. You see, no matter what, once you're in the spirit, you can't really lose that.
Can Nigeria ever realize its potential as to be a great nation?
I always used to say something. Nigeria is a country that has so much wealth, and we've not even tapped it yet. And it's a blessed country, but unfortunately, we have not. I give another example of a friend of mine. He was an English guy, unfortunately he's dead now. He went to Kogi State, and he went there to Kogi State, and he was up on one of those mountains. And when he went there, he just scraped the grass and took some scoop of soil with it and went back to test it. And the iron content was 80%. So The mountains you see in Kogi State are pure iron. Many countries that are still producing countries today, they have 40% iron content, and all they do is to boost it up. Nigeria's mountains 80% iron content. Mountains, not iron. We have coal, we have uranium, we have tantalites. Tantalite. The city of Jos is sitting on tantalites. The whole city of Jos is on tantalite.
What is that?
Tantalite is what they used to make aircraft. It's the light stuff.
Wow.
So you can imagine a whole city is sitting on a mine. And who are you going to tell to take his house that you want to start mining the place? Except they move the whole city of Jos away. So you begin to see the kind of things that God has placed. But I guess God blesses us and then gives us bad leaders. And so that's really the challenge.
So where do we begin to look for good leaders? Because it's a vicious circle. You know, you have the godfathers, the professional politicians that are in operation that will have to play up to them.
It's a generational problem right now. One doesn't like to admit it, but really, and I hate saying this, and I don't enjoy saying this, but soon as it, and I really didn't think I'll get to this stage where I'll say this, where I'll say my generation is at the failing stage right now. Reason quite simply is that because, first of all, the older ones have refused to let go. We're getting too old now, and then the younger ones who are coming behind are beginning to learn bad habits. So, first thing first is to basically wipe out our generation, and then go back to the guys who are in the 35 or 40 years old, and let them begin to take over this thing and begin to generate. Because really, whatever we're doing is for them anyway. So let them begin to look at countries like England. The Prime Minister is 35, he's 40. Why should I be having a Prime Minister who's 70, whatever years old? His sell-by date is gone. So,
do you think it's a cultural thing?
It is a cultural thing, but then we need to learn to accept that the guys. Why should I be training my kids in school in the best universities and not willing to hand over to him? And it's also, if you look at our corporate organizations, the same thing. Many of our fathers have built organizations and they refuse to hand over to their children. Really, they should have, at the age of 60, they say, you go to Greece, go to Europe. Many of those guys, when they get to 60 or 65, their kids are already running the show. I have a friend in Athens who owns 110 tankers. How old is he? When I met him, he was only 42. And now he's 46 this year. 42, 44, 46. And that's it, because he took over that business. It wasn't him that started it. It was somebody that gave it to him.
It's interesting you said that, because when I think of companies in Nigeria that have the longevity, when I was growing up, I remember the Leventis, and I don't know if those countries.
Leventis is still there.
But
they are doing other things now. They've left their supermarkets and whatever. A
the
lot
Kingsway.
Kingsway, UAC is still there, but the shopping malls stopped. But at least UAC is still there, but not as big. But what you notice, how many family businesses have you seen has done a generational? And it's very difficult. Those ones are still there. JB Mandela's, those are foreigners, Leventis, those are the Greeks. JB Mandela, that's Greek John Mandela's. UAC, that's the British one. But those ones are multinationals. Go back and look at how many Nigerian companies. You look at, apart from right now, Eleganza, which is still there, but the man is still alive. Let's hope that it continues thereafter. Who again? Adebowale is no longer there.
Adebowale Electricals.
Wow.
Abiola is not there.
Abiola is Concords and are no longer there. So you find out that a lot of these family businesses are having difficulty passing 2 or 3 generations. I wish somebody can remind me of many of them.
Wow.
Eleganza, I think Eleganza, no, not Eleganza, I think Elizabeth might scale through.
Okay, in Toyota.
Yeah, I think his son is running that one. I think the guy is running that one.
What about the bank, FCMB?
FCMB, well, it's Otumba has passed it successfully over to what's that my friend's name? Jide is seems to be doing a good job.
Okay, what inspires, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? That's an interesting one. What? I can't even remember now. So many things goes through my head. I can't even think about them. the future, especially for our children, and then I have this. I grew up in England here, so I went back to Nigeria. I've been back in Nigeria since 1987, and going back with very high expectations. And we're now almost 30 years down the line now. Next year, make it 30 years. And we're still expecting. So it's very, very sad. It's very, very sad. Very sad. We came back with so much hopes and expectations in 1987.
Wow.
And we're still where we
are. How do you define success?
Oh. First of all, it's not about money. It's not about money. You see, sometimes money can actually add to failure. I think it's more about what you leave behind. One of the joys I have, I may not be a billionaire, as the case may be, or whatever the case may be, but the bottom line is that I'm able to move around with peace of mind. I think that is it.
We share that.
I have that peace of mind. I'm able to walk, and people come to thank me sometimes for what I've done in their life, not even remembering what I've done. When you know you have reached, you've touched somebody's life, those are the kind of things that brings joys and success to one life. When you walk in somewhere and then people are not turning their face or raising their noses at you. That is worth any money that you can put on the table.
Okay. So many you deal with. Presently you are the president of the African Ship Owners Association.
African Ship Owners Association.
Yeah. What's that?
Basically, we're trying to develop Pan-African fleet.
Okay.
What we found out is that Africa is actually exporting. You don't realize Africa is so big and it's so blessed with so many raw material, all the way from the north all the way down to the South Africa, and we are exporting so much of our raw materials out, and then we're also importing a lot of our finished products back in. And what we found out is that in all of this, Africa does not have 0.1% of the ships that do this.
Wow. So
we're trying to develop an African fleet. How can we, because even if it's 20% or 30%, how can we be participants in the trade that happens within Africa? We're shipping out bauxite, we're shipping out uranium, we're shipping out oil, we're shipping gas. Why should we not be a major participant in the transportation? So what we're trying to do through Mrs. Zuma, the African Union Commission, chairperson, is that we're trying to see how can we develop a Pan-African fleet, so that each areas can take charge of their cargo. Yes, they can bring in the big cargoes, but the transshipment within African countries is handled by Africans and Africans alone. That's what we're looking at.
That's brilliant. And hopefully the idea is very welcome by the governments in Africa.
Well, Nigeria is very difficult, but the South Africans are really on board. The Kenyans, most of these southern eastern countries are very much on board because they really have been quite suppressed. Nigerians they have that, what's my business, because they don't see the money they're losing. So, but we are trying to get attitude to them. I don't think it's the private sector. I think it's more of the government because until they begin to appreciate the kind of money that they're losing. How can you be doing a business in Africa where other people that they are living in Knightsbridge or whatever else from the money they get, whereas your own Nigerians cannot even afford to live in Sule. Those are the challenges.
Yeah. It's good you mentioned the attitude, because Nigeria is all about exposing the mindset, the attitude and the mindset of Africans. Then actually, what you come across so many people. So what quality do you admire in a person?
I like people to be open, The problem we have a lot of people have a lot of chip on their shoulders, so they try to be what they're not, and that is a big challenge for me. People, I won't say God-fearing anymore because I'm very sincere with you. A lot of
be real with me.
It's easier to do. And I say this to this, and people will say, why do you say this? It's easier to do business with a Muslim than it is to do with a Christian.
So, once again, I share that with you.
You know?
If you introduce yourself and you tell me you're a pastor, I'll take a back seat.
Yes.
Hey,
You know, because people use it thinking that they're trying to use this, but they're quite so. I don't use your religion as a basis of doing business with you anymore. I try to size you up and put my own due diligence on you.
brilliant.
Whatever the case may be. So you just have to be very free and very open and say that it is. I like people who are very truthful. The truth naturally hurts. Over time, like you say,
Oh yeah, it heals. We're getting, to the end of the program. What was the best piece of advice you've ever been given, professional or personal?
If you can't make a friend, don't make an enemy.
Repeat that again.
If you can't make a friend, don't make an enemy.
I like that. I always end my program by asking this question. Asking my guests this question. If you were to, Temisan Raymond, just think back 20 years ago. If you were to make a phone call to the 20-year-old Temisan Raymond Omatseye, what would you tell him?
Oh my God. Talk less, listen.
Talk less, listen more. Why do you say that? Do you think, now that,
No, you see, what I found out now is that people are intimidated by internet. And when you talk a lot, people see the level of intellect you are put on the table. They feel threatened.
Okay.
So it's better for them to look the fool
Hmm.
and let them allow you in. Because what happens is that they say, that guy will take my walk.
Many, because we have, so many people watching it. Many, the work or your contract will be taken by someone else.
No, meaning that the person who's on that seat, if you're trying to advise him what to do, he now feels intimidated because if somebody else hears what you're offering, they might ask him to leave and then you should take the seat.
You take over.
And sometimes they get it wrong.
What kind of mentality is that?
Because they feel it's all I. Whereas you find a way to work with it to actually secure that seat better. Like I said, I'd rather have more intelligent people around me than have psychopaths. And the problem we have in Africa is that we have a lot of psychopaths who do not allow you to build yourself. Because once you have people who are more intelligent than you are stretched. Because they keep you on your toes. But once you have people who are psychopaths, everything you say is good, you begin to drop in value because you now begin to fall to them.
Wow. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. You've been very, very real with me. I really appreciate that. You did say you're an open person and you have been very open. I almost goofed because I didn't know, the situation with EFCC is ongoing. So again, had I known that, I wouldn't have been very free to ask you. But I'm glad, you took it in your stride and you were happy to talk about that. I really, really appreciate that.
Well, it's in the public debate, so it's not. Because naturally, I'm sure your podcast will not come out for another 2 weeks anyway.
Yes.
So we are safe. So I think it's not sub duties.
Brilliant.
So whatever is said, anyway, it's basically it's what I've already said in court anyway. Okay. So it's already something expressed. So it will naturally not affect. And luckily, it's in England anyway. So.
Well. Raymond Temisan Omatseye, thank you so much for coming on the program. We really appreciate that. And I'm sure we'll have you again.
Oh, I'm certain. Maybe I'm sure by now you should have been addressing me as senator if I was not pushed out of my.
Yes. But we talk more about the political side of you next time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's Nigerian Real. Take care. God bless. Bye for now.
Thank you.